Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Sci-Fi Queens podcast, where we celebrate all things sci-fi. If you're new to our channel, we ask that you hit that subscribe and notification bell. It will really help us and let you know when our next episodes are up. We will truly appreciate it. If you want to support our channel, you could check out our website that's scrolling presently at the bottom of the screen, sci-fi queens.net. You'll find information on our shows, on our queens, and our link to our merch store as well. And tonight we have Sarah, the Queen of Darkness, my special co-host. And excuse me, we have a very special VIP guest. We have sci-fi indie author James Allen McGettigan. Am I saying your last name correctly?
It works. Yeah, McGettigan.
McGettigan. Okay. No, I want to say correctly. Okay. I don't want to get in trouble with the McGettigan family.
I get after her for pronunciation sometimes.
Yes, it's important to say people's names correctly. Before we begin tonight, I do want to make a little bit of an announcement. And I wanted to share some information on this beautiful queen you see right here before you, which we in the podcast world call her Cosmic Mom. She has been an amazing supporter to us here at the Sci-Fi Queens from day one. She was an amazing supporter to Captain Squadron, and she is the mom of Captain Joe Dove from the Captain Squadron. She passed away this week. It was very sudden. She was a beautiful, kind, supportive individual, and we asked that because it was very sudden and unexpected, if you are so inclined to contribute to their GoFundMe, the information is right there. And if you can give, that will be lovely. Always you can go to the Captain Quadrants page and share your condolences as well. I'm also going to be changing our banner at the bottom. It's usually sci-fi-queens.net that scrolls at the bottom. But for today, I'm going to change that over to the GoFundMe page so that everyone can see it. But I know that she would want us to continue and do the best sci-fi presentation we can give. Now, we have James here, a very special guest. I am currently reading his amazing book. First of all, I read the first book. I got issues with you. How you make me love these characters. So I got to start with you, okay? And I'm in the middle of the second book, okay, Altered Moon. But we're going to talk to you about your writing, your books, your style. So tell us first a little bit about yourself, and tell us anything and everything you want us to know.
Sure. Just anything personal or more who I am as a writer or?
As a writer, whatever you want to share with us tonight, we are all ears because we are about to gossip. No. We're just teasing.
Well, I'm James. I have been writing seriously since I was about 11. I was almost 12 at the time. And so that's about 13 years roughly, or 14 actually. And I've always had like a knack for storytelling. As a kid, like before I was 11, I would regularly like just talk to myself and tell myself stories. It didn't matter what the setting was, if people were around. I would usually be like just putting like stickers together or doing something else on the side and talking to myself. I apparently even had a whole franchise that I cannot call to this day all the specific details of, but like my dad and I used to sit outside a lot and we'd watch the sky at night, and I had a whole elaborate thing where I'd tell him about this character in my head that was in the sky. He had a star and he'd go on all these adventures. So
I
I've
love that
been
story. It's beautiful.
developing stuff like that for a long time. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. You actually got a few comments already. The first one here from Kayla, she says, "My husband is hooked with the altered moon." I'm with your husband. I'm absolutely with him on this. It's a read that will get you hooked. Angela says, "Love the altered moon series."
Oh, that's my
Okay,
editor. Yeah.
and she also is ready for book 4. I don't know what's happening. So
Well,
tell us
she's
about
my editor.
Yeah, she's your editor. Editors are
Mhm.
always welcomed. um, so tell us about your what made you start writing? What was something that influenced you that made you start writing?
Sure. To answer that question, it goes back to something I said earlier, which was when I was 11 and I was in middle school at the time, sixth grade. I wasn't doing all that well, mainly with math, but all around, I wasn't really doing that well in school. And I kind of had a lot of anxiety about my performance. And I was having this lucid dream one night. And for those of you who don't know, a lucid dream is just when it's very like real. It feels like it can last a long time, and it's very like the details are very vivid. And I had a dream where I lived basically the POV of my main character in the altered moon for about 3 or 4 months in the span of one night in one dream, which inspired the story. And I woke up from that feeling like, well, that has to be a movie someday. And as an 11-year-old kid, I knew then it's like, well, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But I could write it in the form of a book and release that. So thus began the journey.
Wow. And what is your writing style? Like, what's your process? What inspires you when you're writing? Like, when you sit down and you go, okay, I'm going to start writing, what makes you think of this is the storyline I'm going to write about?
Well, I do kind of attribute this to my parents and how much they challenged me, because for the longest time, and the part of the reason why it took about 10 years to get my first book completed to the point that it was publishable was because a lot of the time, mainly my dad said, not that it sucked, but like there were different things where it's like either the characters didn't make sense or like my grammar, my prose was off a bit. And so I constantly reworked like the Altered Moon by itself. I've never had as many drafts for a book as the Altered Moon has had. There's at least 10 that it's gone through. And my through that experience, I've learned that the best way to write is to keep things moving, to have some kind of tension throughout the story. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's constant action. There's room for the audience to breathe, but sometimes tension comes through rather than like fist fights as like the undertones of a conversation and what isn't being said between two characters or something like that. So I try to keep the plot always on, not thin ice, but moving, progressing. I don't like to stand still for too long.
So it's a real page turner.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I do have a question. When you had that dream, did you like have a dream journal or anything that you like scribbled it all down real fast, or did you just hang on to it, or
Not
how did you?
really. I mean, I could still pretty much remember the details pretty vividly in my head to this day from that dream. And the dream by itself, it only spans the plot of the first book, and it wasn't as detailed as what even the first edition came out to be. There were a lot of different characters that I added and things involving with the plot and events and things. It's I kind of just wrote down an outline at first of the key events, and then I started actually putting together like pages of content and then chapters and all that stuff.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
I mean, that's amazing to me to see that you have this process that you go through, and coming up with these amazing stories. Because I know with the Altered Moon, it's very creative. And when you started writing this, what was your thought process? Like, were you thinking in terms of a military sci-fi, or were you thinking just sort of aliens and things like that? Like, what was your original thought process?
It's a good question because, again, if my parents and again, mainly my dad hadn't pushed me as much as he did, The Altered Moon would have been a standalone because at the time, I was thinking in terms of how I could develop into a story, yes, but I wasn't thinking developmentally. I was still thinking in terms of the bare bones of like the
Yes.
inspiration for the story, which was the dream. Um, and that wouldn't have ended all that well. Even like at the ending of the first book, it's not as like shocking or awe-inducing. It kind of just was like the thing with the moon happens at the end, as you know, Nita, and then that was it. And
Yeah.
I had no more. So I was like, well, you know, I probably should have at least a second book, and then that spiraled into what it is today.
Kayla has an amazing comment, which I
Yeah.
agree with her wholeheartedly. Anyone who's read the first book and even the second book, and I'm not even finished with it, these books are amazing and would be fantastic on screen. How
Thank
do
you.
you feel about that? How do you feel that something that you worked so hard in your writing is making you feel like you might just have a movie in these books?
It feels amazing, to put it short, but it feels like I've actually reached the potential that I want, at least for the first book in my series, to get it to that level where it is worthy of being a movie, because that's what I wanted. That was my goal from the get-go. And truly, I think, especially with how not nearly as many people read anymore as compared to even 20, 30 plus years ago,
Mhm.
this story, not to toot my own horn, is very impactful and it is very relevant to today. The issue
Yeah.
with it being a book is that, again, not many people read in today's world, which is unfortunate. But a lot of people like to veg and binge movies and shows. And if I can get it to that point, I think it would be a lot more influential, especially with the ending of the first book. If even just the first book got adapted into a film, I think it would be highly
Yes.
impactful with what's
Yeah.
going on today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was so much in this book that I resonated with, and I'm not even a military person. But there were so many other topics within this book that was so resonating to me and so amazing that I was so impressed by how good a military sci-fi could be in writing. Because watching it on screen and reading about it, it's a very different experience, I think.
Yes.
And I think you're right. A lot of people are about the visual. They want
Mhm.
that visual effect. There's nothing really wrong with that. It's okay. But sometimes you miss that that experience of letting your mind create that movie,
Mhm.
and the
Yep.
descriptions in this book are so vivid, that you can really see characters come alive, and that's something that I personally need as a reader. Sarah, how do you feel about characters when you're reading them in a book and they're coming
Mhm.
alive for you?
Oh, I fall in love with them. Like it's like I'm an emotional reader, so like I get pissed off, and like I was reading one last week, and I was just like, oh, this bitch. It's like, oh, I know where this is going. It's like, oh, I bet you better knock her out. Um, it was two girls fighting, so it wasn't anything weird. But it's just like I feel for them, like, and that's what I think a good book should do. Is it should
Yeah.
make you like have a bond or feel what the characters are feeling or sympathize for them. You know, um, it just is what it is. I'm reading and listening to audiobooks, and because I'm doing that, not at the same time, but because I'm doing that, I really haven't watched a lot of TV lately, and I've kind of gotten away from what you're talking about, that vegging and binging, and I'd rather read and
Yeah.
kind of mind my own business. I don't know.
Now, how hard is it to edit characters, not just the
Hmm.
story itself? Because the story, as a writer, I'm thinking you're expecting to edit to some degree.
Yeah.
But when you create a character, these are like people, right? That you're
Mhm.
creating. And you imagine so and so being this way and that way. But then as you're editing, you may have to make adjustments in order for it to fit this new sentence structure or new little paragraph that you added.
The new
It's
plot or
really,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. How
Mhm.
hard is it to edit characters and their persona?
It's a good question, and there's not really one particular way that I do it. It depends on the character, because as you'll find out, Nita, when you get more into book two, I'm not sure where you are, but um, like in terms of how I've developed Amit's character, he's the character who throughout all my writing, I've based most of like my life experience and persona on, and who in developing his circumstance, I've also adapted it into my own character. Um, and so I have that dynamic with Amit, with his character or his cousin, younger cousin Log. His character evolves more so in the second book and in the rest of the series, and how I developed him was more through um, an experience that I had when I was 21, which was when my dad passed away. And just from that experience, it it influenced how his character evolves in the story. And
Yeah.
then I'll name one more just to keep it brief. Um, with
No, go ahead. This is your hour for you to shine. We are not going to censor you. You go talk all you like. That's
okay,
how we
all right,
roll here at the Sci-Fi
Yeah.
Queens.
all right.
We're here to
Then
support you.
then
Yeah.
let's see what. Oh, right. So for May's character, who is Amit's partner in the series, she doesn't get much page time in the first book, and there is a reason for that. It's because like Amit being in the position that he is, he has certain abilities that, as you saw, Anita, not many other people can survive given certain situations that he finds himself in, and only he can himself do. So that's why she's not as much in the first book. She comes back in the second one. And I myself, I haven't had a lot of success in that avenue of my life if concerning like intimate relationships and stuff like that. And their dynamic is mainly inspired by a combination of both how I view how relationships are developed in a negative way, and also in the vein of like how I would hope a healthy relationship could evolve in that way. And she's not, there's it's not really toxic, but just the way that they operate, it's very gray, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense.
I'm all
It
about the morally gray.
That's why she's the queen of darkness, because she's about morally gray. Absolutely.
Um, can I
Go
go?
ahead. Mhm. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
James, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out writing or considering writing?
Great question. I would tell that person, first thing to do is to learn to let go of your ego and learn to take, well, I'll put it this way: learn the difference between critical advice and what's it called? Just like blatant advice. Because critical advice is helpful. It's when somebody
Yeah.
says, it's like, you know, this is a great story. I see the potential for it. And even if I don't think it's great, there are things here that maybe aren't working for me that you can improve upon because I see the potential for it. Blatant
Constructive
advice.
criticism, you mean?
Yes, that's what I was meaning to say. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
And then blatant advice is where someone who may not have even read your entire manuscript takes it and says, this is a piece of garbage, worst thing I ever read, should be burned, all these other things. I've had people like that review my content. Not this one so far, but others that I've published in the past. And it's like, well, you probably didn't read the whole thing, and whatever you got going on, that's your problem. I don't count those reviews.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. And I think that's good advice to give people that don't take. So what you're saying basically is to take constructive criticism, but take reviews that are maybe more negative, that aren't constructive, with a grain of salt, and just say they got their own issues and they're lashing out at me or whatnot.
Like I would say, don't even take them with a grain of salt. Just say they don't apply to your work, because it doesn't help you at the end of the day. It's not beneficial.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And how much research? Yeah. How much research did you have to do? Oh, that's okay. To write a military sci-fi story.
Good question. So for the first book, there was a little bit more research that I did in terms of like creating the quote unquote hard sci-fi elements. I wouldn't consider the first book hard sci-fi, but there's elements in it where it's like I talk about how the certain engineering factors of how they're able to do anti-gravity and all these things. And it's very basic explanations on how that all works. So I did do some research with that just to get an idea of like how I could explain it. The main thing that I did actual research for was for the back end of the book, there's a circumstance where the moon is getting closer to the planet Galiza. And I won't say why, but it's having bad effects on natural disasters on the surface of Galiza.
Hey, didn't we just watch a movie about that?
and it something like that, if it were to happen, that's the effect that it would take is there'd be volcanoes erupting, there would be the tides would be higher, and it just so happens because it fit perfectly well with what I wanted to do for the big fight scene at the end of the first book, is it would make the moon spin faster, which would put the climactic battle in the shadow of the moon. So that ended up working out perfectly.
So, I mean, do you do research first and then start writing, or do you jot down ideas and then go back and go, let me make sure that my thoughts coincide with at least some real facts? Because one thing about reading science fiction is there are facts in science fiction. It's not just all made up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So usually what I do is because the way that I get inspired is not necessarily by reading other people's content. I do read a lot actually, but I don't try and take inspiration from what I consume in terms of media. And usually whenever I get a first idea for something, like an initial inspiration for a plot or an energy, weapons, or whatever it is that comes to mind, I always say to myself, well, I know that probably stems from something I saw a week ago in my subconscious mind. This is very Star Warsian, or this is very Star Trek, whatever. So what I do is I sit with that initial thought and I ask myself what if questions. And I try to make it into my own thing. So once I get that established in terms of what I want to do with the idea, I then go and do the research to make sure, how can I make this realistic?
Now, you haven't just written the Altered Moon series. You have written other books as well. Do you want to share some titles? Tell us about it. Maybe tell us what you're working on now, because we want to be in your business and we want to tell other people your business.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, so I have a lot of works that are currently not published, and that's just because, like, when I was writing The Altered Moon, I was pretty much, that was my main thing for like at least 3 years, and then I came across Game of Thrones, and I was really wanting to like get into that series. My parents wouldn't let me watch it, so I read the books, and then I got inspired by fantasy elements, and I started a fantasy series that again hasn't been published yet, but I have like at least some amount of progress on 3 books in that series. Um, and I
So
won't
this is
say
something you plan to publish.
yes. Um,
Yes, good. I'm here for it.
and I won't say what it's called or what it's about exactly, but basically what inspired that was I wanted to one up George R. R. Martin because I think that Game of Thrones is overrated. I think it's more of a what's it called, like a historical fiction than a fantasy. But that's basically what inspired that work, and then I have others in the works as well.
That's wonderful. I mean, I know you're working on the fourth um, book. I mean, I have this podcast titled the Altered Moon Trilogy, but it's not. It's a series.
Hmm.
You, you're gonna get me hooked on a whole series.
Yep.
What you doing to me, really, boy? What you doing to me? Because there were moments reading, especially that first book, and I don't want to talk about the second book because I'm not finished with it yet. That I was like, oh, I have to put this down because I want to hit somebody. And then you're like, oh, but I'm in love with this character. And it's like so intense, the reading, and your mind just gets really involved in the character development that you created in this book. And the storyline is so believable. And I can see the military aspect of it. Like I can get it's touching on some real issues because that's
Hmm.
what sci-fi does. Sci-fi, we say this here all the time, touches on real issues, what's happening in this world, and gives it a sci-fi element so that it's more palatable, yet it's still giving the message. And I think your book is doing that, and I think that that's important, for us to know, that it is something that's happening. I think it's an amazing story. Um, and do you know how far in the series, like how many books you're gonna make of this
Yeah.
series?
So in terms of the Altered Moon, there's definitely going to be 6 books because it was originally going to be a trilogy. The third book would be way too long as an own book. The second book was a tad bit too long, and the person who I was originally having, edit and put it together recommended that I split it in half. So books 2 and 3 are basically the same book, split up. But then
Yeah.
at the time, also, I ended up with like the second half of the second book, and it wasn't that long. So I added a whole lot of detail in there to kind of flesh it out.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, there will be at least 6 books in Altered Moon. There may be a 7th, maybe. But it won't come until I have at least everything else I want to do with the series
Of
finished.
course. Yeah.
Done.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
more like an epilogue or an afterthought or later on down the road.
Well, that's what I'm planning to do is because the Altered Moon is basically the foundation for the universe that I'm creating. It's all the history to what's happening, and then the fantasy series comes in, and that's kind of the beginning of this new thing. And then there's some other sci-fi stories in between, and then maybe the 7th
Yeah.
book leads into something different.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now I know we've been saying this, that this could be a movie, and I really do believe this will look beautiful on screen. But I think it could also be A board game. I'm just saying.
I've
This would
I've
be
had
an
people tell me
awesome
that too.
board
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
Hmm.
Listen to them. We know these things. How do you feel about that? Your book should have, when you wrote it, it was just supposed to be a book. But now people are encouraging you and telling you this could be a movie, this could be a board game. How does that feel? Like, how surreal is that?
It's I wouldn't say it's surreal. It's a bit strange, the board game concept to me, just because I didn't quite envision it going down that route. I wouldn't be opposed to it at all, but it just seems interesting to me because I would be curious about how I would execute that. That being said, I don't think I could fully fledge out whatever the concept would be for the game until like at least the fourth or even the fifth book came out, just because
Makes
there's a lot of
sense.
things
Hmm.
in the universe of the story that you aren't given any details on until the third and fourth book. You get
Yeah.
to those points. Uh, but I I would say that I've seen it more as a video game, if not a movie as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. A video game would be fantastic because especially now, video games now are interactive. They're storylines. It
Hmm.
stops and it gives you scenes. That would be and this book would be perfect for something like that. Absolutely. It's because you have incredible fight scenes, you have incredible battles, missions. So yeah, that would be excellent. Video
Hmm.
game people, you're watching,
Hmm.
contact him so that you can make this. We think everyone watches us. So you should video game makers are watching us too, and they should contact James and get this together because I think that will be excellent idea to make this into a video. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
I could
Now,
see it.
Sarah, you're a video game player.
Hmm.
How would you feel about a sci-fi military video game? Talk to
I
me.
think I would like it. I would
Mhm.
enjoy it, especially if there was like I'm not sure if you really want. I'm not I'm not a huge fan of those like what are they called? The like going there are multiple players and it's all one world and you're all out there and you gotta like fight other like actual people. I don't like that. I like doing my own thing, um, and like still kind of an open world. I can go do whatever I want and they give me shit to do, but I can still go do things. Um, and I've played military games like that. I don't like the regular military games because they're just all like kill, kill, kill. But like something that's got some science in it and maybe you got to stop something that's happening and yeah, you fight along the way. That's better. It's not just all anger all the time.
Hmm.
Yes. And now Mel from Mel's Rebellion has a great comment. She says people love war games. And she's right. People
Hmm.
absolutely love war games. But just to be clear, as these books are not just about a war, they're not just
Yeah.
about um battles and missions and sci-fi. It really is about the characters and their lives, and that's what I think is beautiful because James has created a balance that's quite lovely in this story for sure.
Mhm.
Hmm.
For sure. Now,
Thank you.
when do you think you'll have the fourth book finished? Like, ideally, versus what you think is. Oh yeah, we're talking about that because we gotta know. We have to know.
Fair, fair. I I want to have the fourth, like the draft of the fourth book, finished by November. How realistic is that? We'll see. I'm at 67,000 words right now in the manuscript for it. It's had a couple of the early chapters looked over by my editor, who's phenomenal. She's doing a great job. Angie edits. You can find her on TikTok. Um, I want it to be either between 120,000 and maybe 150,000 words. Um, and I don't know. We'll see. But
Is there a standard of how many words a manuscript to to start you off with has to be, or is that up to the writer?
A novel is considered 85,000 words and above, which I think I could definitely will get past that. There's just so much, because like I said, the fourth book expands the universe of the story into something bigger. The first three books are limited in terms of like it only all takes place on like one planet, but that's not the heart of like what all is going on in the universe. There's a lot more that is. It's just a circumstance of the main characters that they're kind of stuck on this planet for the first three books. Why? If you want to know why, go and read the book.
Yeah, that's right. Go read the book.
There's something that happens in book 3 where it expands it, and then I need to give audiences, like, get them up to speed on what's going on. So that's why I want it to be longer.
Okay, that's good though. That's good to know, because when we get to finish to book 3, we're going to be waiting around, and we need to know how long we have to wait, because you know, if they're like me, they're very impatient.
Yeah. Well,
they're very impatient.
To give you a year or like a date, I would think I can get it out by late next year, like maybe in November or December 2026 or January 2027, somewhere in that range.
If you get it out by November, that is a great Christmas present people can start buying for people that want this book, right? I'm just saying.
Yep.
People have to buy books for Christmas, right? Yeah. But if they buy book 1, 2, and 3 now, then you're set for the next 2 Christmases.
Pretty much.
There you go. Absolutely. Now, are you doing any author signings anywhere where people can perhaps meet up and get their copies signed? What is your where you're at with that?
So I haven't looked into that as much because I've been trying to get the marketing down for the books. And I think I'm getting to a point where it's like I can start doing it more independently. I've hired somebody who's given me a breakdown of how all that works. And I have video, like recordings of like our sessions together. So I'll be looking back at that more regularly. And I'm thinking I'll start looking at like conventions I can go to maybe in November and December for next year. Just because there's a lot going on this year. And for the time being, because I have a website, but I haven't figured out how to set up a shop yet. I have copies of my books upstairs that I'm willing to sell signed. And I have them listed on eBay at the moment, just as a placeholder, because I don't have a shop yet. But if you are interested in getting a signed copy off me, you can find my books on there, and I'll give you the name here in a second.
Yeah, take your time. Absolutely. We want to know so that because people love signed books. I do. I love purchasing a book that has been signed by the author. I think it's so special. So I think that that's really nice to have. And there's a lot of book festivals and even Comic-Cons that you can be a part of. And there are tables that people sell their books, you know, especially sci-fi Comic-Cons. They would love it. And if you come to one in New York City, you better give me a heads up.
I certainly will. All right. So I'll put it in the
mandatory. That's mandatory.
So that's JAMCGET0 is my handle on eBay for anybody who'd be interested in getting a signed copy. And that is, again, that's temporary until I figure out how to get the shop up.
Oh, no, that's understandable. I mean, it's not easy to create, you know, these stores and these shops. It takes a lot of work to figure it out, what works best for you. I am going to actually put this scrolling at the bottom so people can see that. And yeah, go check out his eBay. And if you want a signed copy, absolutely. Now, is there so you're not doing any in-person meetups as of yet?
No, I have done one, and it was at a local bookstore who
Okay.
they housed some of my books and did all that. And that was about a year ago. But in 2023, I hit a burnout point, which is also why it's taken so long for book 4 to come out, because I had a lot of things going on for 2 straight years. I was a very different person for 2 straight years, from 2021 to 2023. And I needed some time to do some self-evaluation, which I have done at this point, and I'm in a much better place. So yeah, does that answer the
That's
question?
always good because, yeah, absolutely. That's always good because those things would reflect in your writing, and you want to make sure you are your best when you're writing. So that's something that I definitely can understand, and we can all appreciate. Those of us who are reading your books can truly appreciate the effort and the work that you're doing on yourself, because it reflects on how good your writing is going. So Sarah, I don't know if you have any last minute questions or
No,
anything.
I'm excited to go find it.
Yes.
I think I checked the library and I didn't find it, so I have to go find it.
We need to get it.
It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and eBay as well, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. So James, thank you so much for coming on. You
Thank
are
you for
always
having me.
welcome here. You're always welcome here at the Sci-Fi Queens.
Yeah.
Let us know
Great to have you.
any projects you're on so we can help bring awareness for that. And before we go, guys, thank you so much for everyone who is here, who put comments. We absolutely love that. But I want to announce our next episode. Our next episode will be September 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And we're going to have another indie author join us that day, W.O. Torres. And we're gonna talk to him and all of you guys about the influence of Hispanic heritage and Latinos in sci-fi. So I'm looking very much forward to September because we're going to celebrate and have some fun. But thank you guys for coming. Thank you for joining us. James, you again are always welcome. Please let us know when there's anything you want us to help announce. The Sci-Fi Queens are here to support you, especially in the authors.
We love making announcements.
Yes, we do love making announcements, and we love to back us up. But good night, guys, and we will see you September 12th.
Thank you. Have a good one, you guys.
Thank you for watching the Sci-Fi Queens, and be sure to support us on all our social medias and check out our website